guess I'll leave with this then. I have this whole lecture that I give about, Bayesian brain. When I say Bayesian brain or Bayes' theorem, does that make sense? Do people know what that is? Okay, so basically what it boils down to through all of this is that compute does not equal relate. They're just categorically different functions, and we are relational beings, and so.
Rich, can you just say, how would you, the essence of what the difference is?
Like that, well, I'd have to walk through how computational cognition happens, and how it resembles. Yeah, great.
It's experiential.
Yes.
The way it's experiential, compute is not.
That's right. It's embodied. It has, that's the whole thing of Earthling Theory, is saying that we inherit this ancestry of intelligence and wisdom that's written into our bodies, but also into our nervous systems, and thus it's entangled with our interiority dimensions. It's all, AI does not have that, and I'm not, dissing AI necessarily, but it just doesn't have it. I'd like to kind of finish up and give people, if we want to go outside and do something, we can.
You just maybe collect the essence of what you're saying about human, artificial and natural intelligences all going out.
Is it possible that some of these systems have a sense of?
I think they can, look, they can hand you a delicious, we were talking about this, it can hand you a plate of delicious food, but there's no nutrition in that food. It's a simulacrum of a meal, and I think that they're good at creating. I don't think that our interiority is a simulacrum. I don't hold a representational view of cognition, which is the orthodoxy. In other words, I hold an enactive view. Do people know the difference between a representational view of consciousness versus an enacted view of consciousness? That basically that our ideas, our sense of self, the little voice that tells you who you are, that seems to reside somewhere back here, and all of the imagery that it sees is not generated as a representation. In other words, it requires a Descartesian dualism to say my brain is enclosed in a dark place without any access to the real world. That requires that you take for granted that your skull and your skin and your body isn't part of it. Somehow that's a barrier to the world. No, it's part of the world, just as you are part of the world. In a deeply, inescapably integral way, everything about us is that process. And so that's kind of what this is trying to say, is that, here, I'll just do it this way, that the conventional view of minds, which we're sort of lazily accepting, is that what's going on in our heads, what we call consciousness or cognition, is computational. It's in our heads. It's isolated from the world by our skulls, which aren't part of the world. It's where's the continuity in that? It's just and that we can reduce it down to neurons firing, without any real deep understanding of what's happening at the molecular and the atomic levels and the field level, morphogenic levels. And it's locked into adolescence. Oh, I'll leave you with this. This might be a way to think about it. Is that, do these terms mean anything to anybody? The diachronic versus synchronic. The current view of intelligence and consciousness is synchronic. It's a snapshot. Here's what it is. I listened to Noah Yuval Harari. I don't mean to keep harping on him. But he tells you what intelligence is. He'll tell you what it is. He doesn't give you any depth analysis of what it is, where it came from. Nothing is what it is. It is how it's only what it's becoming. But to look at it as if you've got the snapshot and you can see it, that's a synchronic view. Syn meaning right now, instantaneously, in this moment. Synchronic. In this moment, that's what it is. But that's such a flat understanding. A diachronic view sees things over time. So here's a little thought experiment. if I present this to you as a diagram, it looks like little, kind of like little, I don't know, blue dots and red smudges, right? It's really the synchronic view of that is pretty understandable. And I get it. I just told you what it was. That's the synchronic view. But now I'm going to show you a snapshot from that same system from an earlier time. And this comes from modeling the emergence of life. So what they've done is they've created a medium, the white part, and these little blue creatures live in it, and they consume the resources that's immediate to them, the white. And as they do that, they just, until they exhaust what's next to them, they die. But evolution creates this one time where there's a little red tail, which makes the thing move. And so now it's got this sensory motor impulse to move through the medium. And as it does that, it finds new food. And so you can see what's happening here is that life's evolved this thing. When I just showed you the first image, this whole story, this whole history of how this thing came into being is not available to us because we took a synchronic view. By taking a diachronic view, we reveal a much deeper, richer. How does this relate to consciousness and AI? AI is taking the synchronic view of what intelligence is and saying, this is what it is. Look, it's computational. We can use Bayes' theorem and make predictions. And look, it's just like predictive processing. Look, it's the free energy principle. It's working. It's like, but it doesn't take into account every relationship that happened throughout time. And by the way, time takes on a whole new meaning when you consider this, because suddenly time, when you think about the cosmic microwave background radiation as the first relationships, it's almost like time arose in order to make space, to make time for relationship to happen. Relationship is primary. Suddenly time is like the slave of relationship, or the requisite for relationship. So I guess what I'm saying is this is, I think, what ultimately differentiates AI's intelligence. That's not to say it's not on the continuum, because it is. What isn't? I'm just saying it's of a categorically different thing than what we've inherited through the diachronic relationships. Yeah. Does that make any sense? And so it's very different from ours. That's not to say it's not powerful. That's not to say it's not going to affect our lives and that we might be under its control at some point. I'm just saying we're different. I don't know if that's any hopeful or not, but it's one way to think about all this stuff. So this is the little sort of thing here. The difference is that other way of thinking, which I think leads to the polycrisis, metacrisis, this way, you can see what I did here was I started with the thunderstorm before the brain shows. This is the left brain, and here's the right brain. But before the brain showed up, it was the thunderstorm. This is the niche construction thing. The environment first, and then the organism appears. And you can see that the thunderstorm's in the skull and outside of the skull. It's following the continuities. And so our consciousness, our thinking, has all these qualities. I guess that's really what I have to say about that.